Well, I grew my first pot plant when I was 12 years old. I didn't have a long career with it then because when my mom realized what it was, she killed it. It wasn't until I started growing, which I was out of college. And when you're in a big room of plants, it has a meditative quality to it of just being alone with the plants. The fact that I was in an illegal space, a dangerous space. But when I was in that room, I was in love with my plants.
Welcome to Flourishing in Cannabis, where I bridge the gap between the plant and technology. My name is Vien, and I'm your host and the Director of Marketing here at Flourish Software. And today, my guests are Stacey Shurgin and Ben Wiener, hailing from New York, and the owners of Hudson Valley Jane, a micro business here in New York, or in New York. How are you doing today, Stacey and Ben?
We're doing great. I mean, I can say I'm doing great.
Weather looks nice wherever you're at, Ben. Well, you were just doing a drop off, right? For
Yeah, I was making a new dispensary delivery. So whenever it's a new dispensary, I like to be show up as the head cultivator. It's always nice to introduce that way.
Well, speaking of introductions, why don't the two of you introduce yourselves, how you got to the space, what you did before, how did you get on this magnificent journey to open this micro business?
So I've known Stacey for about 18 years, but prior to that, and unknown to Stacey, I was a legacy grower in Brooklyn. When I really met Stacey is after my growing days when I became a general contractor. Stacey's in the real estate business and a developer, and I was a general contractor. I ended up doing some of her higher end work. We became good friends. And along that timeline, Stacey bought some land upstate, and right after that, we became legal in New York State. So, long story from there to us getting our license, but we ended up applying for a micro license on her property. We got the 50th license in the state, and that was April 2024, was it? I think, Stacey? And we have since gone to town building out our grow as a general contractor and legacy grower and a developer. With Stacey's end, we were able to really whip things through, and we now have a fairly state-of-the-art facility in Ancram, New York, and our dispensary is already open in Beacon, New York. And the reason you're seeing me out here in the woods is because I just made a delivery to a dispensary, which is our 10th dispensary, I think, that we're gotten into in the last month. So we're on our way. Things are going crazy, and there's a lot to fill in between everything I just said, but I'll stop and let Stacey speak a little.
Right. Well, I don't have to say my connection to Ben because he just did a great job summarizing it. I think that could be the best I've ever heard you do it. But yes, we are friends. We've been friends since 2011, I want to say, somewhere around there, when we met on a job we were doing. And after that, we became fast friends. And unbeknownst to me, I had no idea there was a legacy grower in the house, and it wouldn't have mattered much because I was not a cannabis person at all. I dabbled a little when I was in high school, but I was always the one that was high on life and didn't really need to smoke pot or do anything like that to escape or even have a good time. And it wasn't until I was in my later 40s where I realized I am really struggling. And a friend of mine out in LA, where they had already legally passed cannabis, had suggested to me that I try an edible. And of course, I was very worried at the beginning to try an edible, to try anything that involved weed, because I was one of those people that leaned more towards being a control freak and really was not comfortable being out of control or loose. And basically, I realized through a regulated market, I could discover my dose. And that really led me on this other journey of really just realizing cannabis can be used to take an edge off. It's not just about being high all the time or even some of the time. It's really something you can use to, instead of having a cocktail, which is which I believe is better for you. So that's when I kind of got into cannabis, and I heard Ben was a legacy grower, and I had this great piece of property upstate. And I said, why not? Let's give it a shot. We're fun. We're good friends. We did everything on a handshake, and here we are now. So it was a really crazy 18 months or 16 months, but with both our visions in building and construction and branding and community, we really somehow managed to cobble it together. So that's kind of how we know each other. And now here we are. So
And here you are. Well, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. I know that I know that you had just opened up your dispensary. You're one of our micro business license holders that have already opened up a dispensary. A lot of our micro business holders have focused a lot more on the upstream piece. But congratulations to you and your grand opening. I did see a lot of pictures on Instagram, so that's really cool. But tell me a little bit more about the brand, what the brand stands for, and what are you? I mean, obviously you're the head cultivator, Ben, but some of the products that you're creating and some of the things that you have in the future stored for Hudson Valley Jane. Excuse me.
I'm going to let Stacey speak to most of the branding, but I want to start by saying the Bougie Ben part is a joke. It's not, I'm not bougie. And I'm going to let Stacey run with it.
well, I'll say this. Hudson Valley Jane is an umbrella. It's an umbrella that has right now two brands under that umbrella. One brand being Bougie Ben, which is the flower brand that we carry under the umbrella. It's true what Ben says. He's very far from bougie.
So it's like a tongue in cheek kind of joke, then I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
You know,
it's got a history of a joke, which we won't get into here, but
and
one
along the
of these
way,
days.
someone kind of knocked Ben and called him bougie, and we all kind of laughed. And Ben was in the corner where a light bulb went off and said, "Oh my God, that's my brand." And it just became really fun to run with it because of the history of our history together in a short time in cannabis. It kind of, it gives us some, I don't know what you would call it, Ben, some peace knowing that we have this great brand name and it comes out of a situation that was very rough at the beginning. So that's the flower brand. And on the other side, like I said, the reason why I leaned more into cannabis was because I was not a smoker. I was more on the wellness side, and I always felt like smoking is harsh for me, especially because my voice is so deep. It really was hard on my throat. And it's really more of our edible brand. And that brand is Valley Jane. So Hudson Valley Jane made sense because it's where our grow and our dispensary are in the Hudson Valley. And it kind of is a play on Mary Jane, which kind of worked really well. And just on the side, my mom's name was Jane, and my mom passed away when I was young. So it felt like an ode to my mother and felt really right. So yeah, so the branding, we have two lines right now, Bougie Ben and Valley Jane. Valley Jane's the more edible side, Bougie Ben's the flower side. And we're trying to make some unique products, which I can let Ben speak about a little bit. Because a lot of people, we have great flower, but we're trying to kind of carve a niche because we're small and we can.
Yeah, and I should add that part of being a micro business is we can't sell anybody else's products in our store. So we have to create all our products, which is why we have so many already so quickly and why we will be continuing to produce anything you could find in another dispensary. Like we have vapes coming next week, and it's all from our plants, that it's distilled from our plants. It's every single product we make comes from our plants. So
So there's real transparency along the way. You really know exactly where it's coming from.
exactly. And then on top of that, thanks to some brilliant branding and marketing ideas from Stacey and others, is we need to be separate. I should say we need to separate ourselves from like the bigger players because we can't compete with them. We can't grow enough to be in all the dispensaries in New York State. We'd run out of supply. So we started doing things like working with these King palm leaf rolls. They're these little dog walker shorty ones that have a corn husk filter, which is actually the best thing about them. It actually filters stuff instead of like those paper filters that do nothing except as a holder. And it's a little like cigar looking thing, and we cap it with keef, and we put them in a 10 pack, and they are already turning into our bestseller. They're flying out the door. And then to balance that incredible thing, Stacey came up with, from the same company, they do a Lotus flower cone, which is a 2 gram cone with a keef cap, which we just got back from testing and is about to go out in the stores. And our CEO, Marion's been out there building hype on it, and that's going to sell out really quickly.
And it's
So
beautiful.
it's beautiful.
And
Yeah.
unlike I said before, Valley Jane was never supposed to be a smoking brand, but this flower is so beautiful that I feel like it belongs to Valley Jane. So we have jumped the line, and Valley Jane is making a smokable item, and that's the Lotus flower. But it won't likely make any kind of pre rolls other than that special roll. So It's cool. They're definitely eye stoppers. Eye head turners. They're really gorgeous. In fact, the video was made this morning that you'll see. It's coming out. It's gorgeous. I don't know if you know anything about a lotus flower, but a lotus flower, just the meaning behind a lotus flower. Lotus flowers grow in like swampy kinds of water. They grow out of the muck and mire of ugly, and they are this beautiful flower that shines through and comes through. And it's like everybody, I don't know, I can relate to this. I don't know if you can, but like we all go through phases in our lives that feel hard, or we feel like there's so much we have to get it out of the way to rise up and shine. And that kind of is why I felt like the lotus flower belonged to Valley Jane. There's just something very inspiring about a lotus flower. So it's a really cool product. I'm excited for it to hit the market.
I was just going to add that the best thing about having our micro license is we can pivot on a dime and do something like that. Like another thing we did is we took one of our things that is already tested and we just slap a Halloween label on it. So it's like, instead of Bougie Ben, it's Bougie Ben.
That is really cute. That's coming out for the whole month of October. That'll be out.
Yeah,
so
really cool. That's super cool.
It's fun we can be as creative as we want to be with this license, and that's a really nice part of it.
That's amazing. And somebody that is I prefer smoking, inhaling versus edibles, or even glass. I don't even like glass, to be honest. Like for some reason, it affects me differently. But out here in California, there's a brand that I'm very kind of prone to, and it's called El Blunto. And so there are these little like cigarillo blunts that use like a hemp wrap roll, little glass tip. It's very It's a very kind of an elegant smoke, but it's just to hold like a cigar. It just feels nice, like, and to have that brown paper and the flavor is something that I really am drawn to as a consumer. So love the sound of that.
The word was on the tip of your tongue. It's bougie.
Yeah, it's bougie. It's bougie. Bougie Ben, Bougie Ben, Bougie Vien goes hand in hand. Bougie Vien, I tell you. Yeah. My friends call me as a joke Cowboy Carter because they think I'm such a diva. So it's pretty, yeah. So, but that's another story. But I'd love to hear this story. I've talked to Miriam a couple of times. I know that she came to our Flourish Fundamentals. She brought actually her entire team to our Flourish Fundamentals training course, which I thought was amazing. And then, again, micro businesses for us is really a bread and butter. Having the ability to move your products from the cultivation to the processing into the point of sale directly without having to lose that chain of custody, without having to move that information out and then report that up to the state when we do report up to metric, is going to be a game changer for you, saving you a lot of time and having to build those manifests out for the other stores and invoices. Hopefully it makes that life easier for you. What I want to touch on is you did mention the fact that obviously you are a small player in the game. New York is really, besides for the ROs and some of the brands that have come from California, it's really on the backbone of those individuals like you that have had the passion for cannabis, that have been in the legacy space, and then trying to grow out your dream and aspirations to be in the licensed market. But I think that you and I talked a little bit behind the scenes, Ben, but how is that being a smaller competitor in the marketplace, competing against even legacy clients still, and those ROs and those bigger brands that are coming out from California?
There's actually, I have zero worries or fears about it, honestly, because of several factors. First of all, the ability, because it's just me and Stacey, we can make decisions, snap decisions, and move on them. There's not like a time lag or a big obstacles in our way. That's very important. And then just the fact that we are allowed to do what we're allowed to do puts us in an artisanal space, sort of like a microbrewery. So we are going to be for the connoisseur class. And I don't mean because we're going to have the most amazing hydroponic weed. We're not hydroponic. I grow in soil, in pots. But it's indoor quality. It's cared for, handcrafted, hand watered. It just gets to any product. The love you put in is what you get out, is the way we both feel about it. And I think most people feel about it, especially as an older smoker. I've smoked my whole life. And it's like at this point in my life, even having been a legacy grower, I'm happy to know what's in my product, to know that it's been tested, to know who grew it, to know where it came from, know the chain of custody, as you were saying. So all these things add up to being in a space where I know all we need. We don't need to be in every store, like I said. We only need that handful of people that are going to keep coming back to us, for which I'll digress for 1 second. The reason people will keep coming back to us is because when you find something you like, the only way to get the same thing, the exact same thing, is go back to the grower that you got it from, because they're cloning. They're getting the exact same plant genetically and growing it exactly the same way. That way you end up with the same plant. So when somebody comes into the store and says, I like Northern Lights, you got Northern Lights? I'm like, well, did you have it in Toronto, Amsterdam, New York, or California? Because it's not the same plant, I guarantee you. And even if it was, how they grew it is going to express differently. So it's like if you want Coke or Pepsi and you come to us and you try our Coke, it's going to be Coke every time. It's not going to be Pepsi.
Even brands that go to growers to get, let's say, Gorilla Glue, might get Gorilla Glue from 3 different people, and it's 3 different plants. So really the only true product that stays the same each time is buying it from a cultivator every time. And not every cultivator has the ability to sell direct to consumer, which is why we love the micro. And also, just to further what Ben was saying, the farm to table food movement started in the Hudson Valley. This is no different with cannabis. It's the same thing. It's farm to table, or what we like to say, farm to Main Street cannabis, directly from our farm right to the consumer. Now, we may sell to a dispensary in between, but it's not like a brand bought that from a cultivator, then rebranded it, and then the next time they made it, they bought it from a different cultivator and branded it. It's literally our brand direct from what we grow right to you. So I feel like Ben said, we don't have that much cannabis to sell. So only the lucky few are going to be able to really enjoy it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And have you entered? Are you going to enter your flower into any competitions here anytime soon?
Yeah, eventually we want to, but the ones that I've been approached by so far, I've been a little disappointed to find out that they divide it into categories. They do legacy growers and they do legal licensed growers. But personally, as a legacy grower that stopped growing in 2006, I got busted. Another story. I did not go to jail. But if I had been growing for the last 25 years and I knew my space and I had my strains down, of course my product is going to be on a different level. So it's like we just built, it's the part I wanted to go back to, and then I'll circle around. But we just built our space in 14 months. And even though it's state of the art, as a grower, I have to learn that space. I have to learn the strains I have now. So when I go to a competition and there's legacy growers out there, like it's not a good competition to go to, let alone it's not legal. And I'm in the legal field now. So I don't really like participating in those. When they start having just legal growers, then I'll participate.
Wow. Well, funny that you said that. There is a competition that is only that I know of as MJ Bowl. It's sponsored by the Buddhists. They're out of California here, but they are only focused on the licensed growers. So there are competitions that are going to focus on them. I can send you some of that information, but it's being run by the Buddhists. That's Jocelyn Sheltraw and her team over there. But I hear you about that. And I think that goes when it goes for business too, like playing by the rules. Obviously is more expensive. You got to make sure you have all the tech in place for compliance. You got to make sure that you're not using too much pesticides. You have to get that stuff tested. So there is a little bit of disparity for those licensed companies that are bending the rules in New York versus people like you that are abiding by the rules, doing things the right way, creating craft cannabis and providing that resource to your consumers.
There were a lot of bumps along the way. Like everybody experienced their version of their cannabis story with OCM. I feel like everyone we talked to, either with a group of people that they got hurt by, and OCM separately, everybody who's in the legal market now has a story. It's been very difficult. I mean, we try to be generous in spirit. We're starting a whole new industry and they're not learning. They're making up the playbook as they go. But there were a lot of things that happened in the early days of legalization that definitely affected us, that made it difficult for us. Ben, you can maybe speak to some of them on the construction side with the lights and.
Yeah, yes, OCM. I don't think anyone was trying to do it wrong, but they got a lot wrong in the beginning, and it's getting better. But the way they rolled it out, just immediately legalizing it before you have legal growers or legal place to buy it, just opened the doors to keep bringing it in from California or Oregon or Oklahoma. And I guarantee there was one company, probably mob connected, that opened like 150 stores in New York City. And by some estimations, there were 1,500 illegal stores in New York City before there was a legal one. So it was like it was rolled out really politically stupid and economically stupid. But I don't blame them. Once you have 1,000 chefs trying to make the meal, it just gets diluted into mush. So they were trying to please everybody. They were trying to do it differently with the social equity and all that stuff, which was all sounds great. It's just when you try to legislate that and then put out compliance for that, it turned into a bit of a disaster. And if the Stacey and I said it once, we said it 1,000 times. How the heck would somebody without the abilities in business that we have and the resources get through this? Like, because it's the computers you got to order, the compliance person, the tags, it's endless. And it all makes sense in the end once we're getting there. And I think we got to be as compliant as anybody in the micro business in the state. But I don't know how people get there. And that's why I'm also pretty convinced that as a micro business, we're ahead of any other micro business in the state because of our abilities, because we were the 50th license and we hit the ground running. As a contractor, like I was drawing up plans before the backhoe showed up, and we just got it built and running and product in stores in 14 months. So no, like you said, some micro businesses are just opening their retail and they got to go buy the weed that Stacey was talking about. So they don't have chain of custody. They don't have any of that. We did the whole shebang in 14 months. And
That's impressive. That's super impressive.
yeah, and that's the thing. One of the only things I'll pat myself and Stacey on the back for.
No, I mean that. Like I said, it's everyone has gone through their trial and tribulations, and that's kind of what this podcast is really about. Is focusing on like that human aspect of the relationship. Everyone sees the brand, everyone sees like the Instagram, but the people behind the scenes that drive that passion that drives you, and all those trial and tribulations. Everyone sees the success, but in order to get there, there's a story behind every single person. And that's the thing about cannabis for me that's always been appealing, is that it is truly something that is so diverse on the clientele of the people that are in the space or that are utilizing the product. And to hear these stories of how you got to where you are, how you built your business and what you're doing now and where you want to go, I find that amazing.
Well, also you have to remember, like, even the compliance people, even you guys, Flourish, like, you're working with people that are doing something. Granted, you're in other states, but you've never done it in New York. There's different laws. There's different ways, some different laws. And like even working together, I mean, that's a whole partnership. It's like the computer systems might not always tell us what we need. So we need to have you guys write more code. Like that's been happening too. And so it's not just starting a business, like any startup, which I had never been involved in a startup before, is really, really hard. And then you add in the fact that it's regulated, and then you add in that it's a completely new industry. It really was like up, down, not even like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It was like 1 step forward, 6 steps back.
And that's the thing is like that behind the scenes, it's obviously like I focus more on talking to the brands and operators, but behind the scenes from a compliance standpoint, when we built this instance, right? So a little bit behind the scenes, Florida has a very similar situation as New York, previous to what was just announced, is that BioTrack in Florida was connected directly to their state track and trace system, where there was no BioTrack, no interface that you could go into to log your plants. Most states have either a BioTrack instance or a metric instance that's for free that you can go and be compliant in, and you can track that information in. Florida was the first state that you could just log directly into the state system, but it was through BioTrack. So we built out the Florida instance, and we just finished that, I think, in February of this year for Florida, because Florida was self-regulating and self-reporting, and then they moved to BioTrack. We had built the instance thinking that it was going to be just plug and play, very similar. But no, the New York laws and regulations is very different what the expectations were. And that led to us having to essentially take what we've done and all the assumptions that we made went out the door. And so for us as third-party administrators, it is every state that we want to go into, from California all the way to here now in Maryland. We're trying to go to Maryland, get in Minnesota. We have to build out every instance for that specific state for that specific laws, for their COA regulations, for their labeling regulations, all that stuff, everything that's being reported has to be built out. And so you'll hear this as kind of a general theme that my frustrations, and I think that it resonates, is that we spent a lot of time building this out for New York, like for BioTrack, for you operators, based on what we know. And now we essentially, all that work is now going down the drain. Well, obviously some of it will carry over, but we still are waiting until October 29th, which is our first third-party integrator call with Metric to figure out what's next. And then the rollout is going to be on, I think, December 17th. So, hey, happy Halloween, happy Thanksgiving, happy Hanukkah, happy Christmas. You got, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. Make sure you're compliant to the state. Don't worry about the other stuff that's in place. So all of us are like, oh, great. Like, I guess that week in Aspen is out the drain now because we got to build some more code. I don't go to Aspen. I'm just talking about some other people.
Right. So that's what you're experiencing all the time. Like everyone in this industry is going through the same thing. And it's really hard because you're also, and for us, we weren't just starting one business. We were actually starting 3 businesses. We were starting a retail business. We were starting a wholesale business. And we were starting a cultivation business for bulk. So like we were 3 startups at once. And there was...
And now you're doing manufacturing too. You're doing your own processing for vapes now too, right?
Well, so here's the thing. Our flower turns into the distillate. Someone does that for us and then returns it to us. Because we don't have that level of processing. But it's still our flower. It's not from another farm.
We should say that we are allowed to do that level of processing, but it's like $1 million in machinery.
And that's a whole other business.
Yeah, we didn't want, that's another, exactly, that we didn't want to get involved in. So we roll our own joints. We do stuff like that. But as soon as it gets into processing, like distillates or vapes or things like that, we send it out.
Awesome. And is that going to be under the Bougie Ben or the Valley Jane?
That's an interesting question. Right now it's going to sit under Bougie Ben because I look at a vape as a smoking product. The only thing jumping the line is the beauty, and that's the Lotus. Any beautiful products that I think of, I want to keep on Valley Jane because Bougie Ben is everywhere. Bougie Ben is going to be our main thing. And it's hard to break into the edible market in New York State because everybody knows Wild, everyone knows Camino, everyone knows those big national brands, right? Kiva, everybody knows them. So it's like, it's difficult because people want that. They're not necessarily willing to give a New York brand a try, which is too bad because I think we have a really great gummy. We went for more of a demographic that was a little bit older, even though they're fun gummies. They're the same gummies that Camino and Wild sell, same types of gummies, same cannabinoids and stuff like that. But the packaging was a little bit more finished for someone more who, I don't know, a little bit of an older crowd. But we're rethinking we're rethinking our packaging, because we want to grab that younger crowd too. And we hope that there's nothing like a New Yorker. No offense. I know you're from California, but like a New Yorker.
No, I'm actually from Chicago. It's okay. It's okay. I get it though. I get it.
Okay, good. So a New Yorker is a New Yorker. Like, don't you want to buy from a fucking New Yorker in New York? It's New York. It's the capital of the world. It's like, there's nothing wrong with those gummies. They're awesome. I mean, they're all the gummies that I've taken before I made my own. But it would be really nice to try to pull some share of the market to a New York brand. So, but it's a little bit harder because these bigger brands, they come into a dispensary and they have displays and they have 20 flavors and they have the display and the freebies and all the stuff they give away. It's very difficult for a small farmer to compete with that. But we're not giving up because we know we're making them for our dispensary. And because we can sell direct to consumer to anywhere in New York State, by the way, we can deliver anywhere in New York State if there's a market. So if we find that we have enough friends and family in Brooklyn, we won't need to be in a Brooklyn dispensary for gummies. We could sell direct to people. And we're kind of looking into that avenue of kind of like a CSA for weed. Community supported agriculture traditionally meant people give money up front for you to grow vegetables for them. We're not taking money up front to grow weed, but community supported agriculture has a lot of meanings. You could support community agriculture by just supporting it, buying from them. So that's kind of something we're going to dive into once we're a little bit more steady. We have the dispensary open. Like Ben said, we're in our 10th dispensary wholesale right now, and we're very proud of the partners that we're working with. Of course, we want to sell to dispensaries, but we're kind of being a little choosy too, because when you go into a big dispensary where there's nobody really knows what a micro is and nobody really spends time talking to the customer, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It's totally fine to go to those dispensaries. But we're not going to do well in that space. And the reason why I don't believe we'll do well is because farm to table, you want to know your farmer when you're buying a tomato at the farmer's market. It's the same thing. Like, we want that crowd. We want the crowd that knows where it came from. And that's not necessarily the crowd in a big dispensary with 40 bud tenders, and you just go up and you know what you want because you ordered it on a kiosk and you're really just picking up. We want people to learn about this license because it's a very, like Ben said, artisanal handcrafted license. It's watered by hand. Okay. It's like Ben didn't talk about this when he first came on, but before he was a general contractor, he owned a restaurant. And it's not because he can't make up his mind up on the career that he wants. He's an artist. He's an artist when it comes to food. He wants it to look and taste a certain way. He's an artist when it comes to the molding in my house, which, by the way, he did. Okay. He's an artist in his growing of weed. He wants that experience to be experiential. And that you don't necessarily get from the big brands. You get high, but you don't get the same love. And so even choosing our dispensaries that we're going to eventually be in, like we said, we don't have that much weed to sell. So like Ben said, he's not really that worried that we're not going to sell it. We will sell it. We just want to curate who we're selling it to. Someone who can appreciate those things. And it's not because we're bougie or obnoxious. It's just because you're a foodie or a weedie. That's the way I kind of look at it.
Yeah. We're going to take a real quick pause here for all you that are listening, for all you that are watching this YouTube video. Please press the like or subscribe button. We'd love your support. To touch base on that, Stacey and Ben, you know what? You've made some really great points. A couple of things. One, I'm from Chicago originally, so go Cubs, go Cubs, go. I can tell you right there. They're in the playoffs here. Hopefully they're still in the playoffs when this is actually released online. But I used to work at a dispensary as a moonlight, as a bud tender, just to get the retail experience. And I worked at one of the oldest medicinal dispensaries in Illinois. And that experience, then going to I'm not going to name brands, but some of the vertically integrated dispensaries. So even though ours we were bought, it was called Nature's Care Company was the name of the dispensary. I think there's only 55 medicinal dispensaries in Illinois still. They never upped the number of licenses. But when you went in there, it was very much when they first started doing things, obviously because you're dealing with, you have medicinal people coming in. So there's a little bit more of a conversation, it's a little bit more of experience, not knowing what you need, asking questions to the bud tenders, trying to figure out what's going to be the best thing for you to digest or inhale for your condition. And then and then what happened was COVID happened. And for us, COVID happened in March of 2020, we legalized adult use in Illinois in January of 2020. So it became a essential service, which was open, but everything was done via kiosk, was done online. And so you lost a lot of that experience. And then that kind of translated into how the experiences happened in a lot of the dispensaries in Illinois in the first earlier years, where it was essentially like going into an Apple store for cannabis, where someone would have an iPad. Oh, like, what do you want? Like, just look for it, order it on the kiosk and get in line. There was really no education around it. So now it's become a lot more because now, the country's is much more open in the last 4 or 5 years since COVID. So there's a lot more of that experience. But I do really appreciate that as somebody that also loves a good smoke, but also I used to partake in craft beer. So craft beer, very similar, I think, with craft cultivation. You experimenting with flavors, hitting the right demographic and profile. You're not going to be for everyone. You're not going to be a Bud Light. You're not going to be a Miller Lite. That's for everyone. They do it. They have a big advertising budget. It's more it's word of mouth, building those relationships and getting that cult following in order to get people to be interested in you. So yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. We are coming close to the end of our podcast here. So I love to always end my podcast with one question for all my audiences, or for all my guests, excuse me. But when did you fall in love with cannabis? To take this journey, to go from being a restaurant, a general contractor, just taking your relationship and bring it to the next level professionally, to go into cannabis, full dive, not even just cultivation. You're doing everything from farm to mainstream cannabis, as you said. But what brought you to this road? So when did you fall in love with cannabis?
Well, I grew my first pot plant when I was 12 years old. So I didn't have a long career with it then because when my mom realized what it was, she killed it. But that's when I started to smoke. And I realized very quickly that it fit with me very, very well. Whether it just gave me what I wanted with a little extra or not, I don't know what the reasons, but that is when I fell in love with cannabis. It wasn't until I started growing, which I was out of college and how old was I? I think I was 20. And I learned from a Cornell plant scientist how to grow properly. And all of a sudden, I very quickly, Stacey has even said this, when you're in a big room of plants, and I never did it small, I was always in big warehouses, it has a meditative quality to it of just being alone with the plants and the fact that I was in an illegal space, a dangerous space. But when I was in that room, I was in love with my plants. Of course, they're all women, so they're female, I should say, not women. But it's just a beautiful plant. Everything about it, I love. I've had a green thumb, whether cannabis or otherwise, my whole life. And it fits with everything I like out of life. And that's when I fell in love with it.
For me, it's funny you say about being in a big room with a lot of plants. For me, I only recently fell in love with it. And when I say recently, really, I think it's right when we started the construction because I'm a very intense personality and I love like doing things like, oh, I like a gummy, I'm going to go make one. Okay. Like that's my personality and it's a little scary. So I didn't fall in love with it when I decided to make my own gummy. But when we first had, I want to say more than 50 plants, okay, when we were doing the construction, I mean, had the plants inside, we had them outside, we had them. When they finally collected in that room and you walk through that room, it's true what Ben says. There is nothing like it. So, and it is like very meditative. It's peaceful. It's just, you can't describe it unless you're in it. And so to say like, when did I fall in love with cannabis? That's when I'm in love with cannabis. Yes, I like to smoke a joint once in a while and get a little high, and I like to take a gummy, but that's not what makes me love it. What makes me love it is being around it. There's just something very healing and peaceful about it. Like when I don't unfortunately get to be at the cultivation every day. I'm home base in Brooklyn and I make it up there like hopefully once or twice a week at best. Often if there's a harvest going on and we're drying, I will set up shop in that room. I'll put my laptop out on a table. I'll have all the plants hanging over my head and there is nothing like it. The smell, it's intoxicating, seriously, in a great way, in a peaceful way. So that's when I fell in love with cannabis in our greenhouse, is what I would say.
Well, now it's yours, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next phase and all the success of the both of you at Hudson Valley Jane. I will, like I said, I want to try this Lotus flower product. I want to try the Bougie Ben too as well. Bougie Ben, Bougie Vien, we'll hang out together. I want before I end this segment, I want to make sure that people can know how to get a hold of you. Where's your dispensary? How can they get your product? Your website, Instagram. Let them know. I'm going to put it out there on the podcast as well.
So our dispensary is in Beacon, New York. Our website is hudsonvalleyjane.com. Our Instagram is Hudson Valley Jane. We have an online menu. You can see a lot of our products. The Lotus isn't out yet, but it was just approved, I think, yesterday. So it should be out in the next 2 weeks. We're already getting major demand from the 10 people we sell. We want to be the first one to have it because, of course, we've been sharing it with them. There'll probably be an Insta post on it very soon because I saw it this morning and it looks awesome. And that's how you can find us. And also info at Hudson Valley Jane. Very often Ben is the one that answers those emails. So if people want to talk directly to the cultivator, that's how to get them. So that's the best way to find us.
Perfect. Well, Ben, Stacey, thank you so much for your time. And for all our audiences, thank you for attending Flourishing Cannabis. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay high, responsible.